Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Haunting of Bly Manor. And I absolutely loved Haunting a Hill House. I love Mike Flanagan's work. He's one of my favorite horror directors because he really knows how to pack an emotional punch and technically create an unnerving and sinister kind of atmosphere for his films. I feel like he balances Stephen King very well, because Stephen King novels are terrifying, but there's so much heart and humanity in them that puts them ahead of so many other like horror stories that I feel like Mike Flanagan's really able to capture both those things. And Haunting a Hill House was an ambitious reimagining of Shirley Jackson's novel, and now we have the reimagining of Henry James's Turning of the Screw. And this one feels a little bit more connected to Turning of the Screw than Haunting a Hill House did to Haunting a Hill House. So I was intrigued to see this because I had high expectations going in after Haunting a Hill House, and I saw a lot of people complaining this is not as scary as the last show. And it's true in a sense. There's less jump scares, there's a lot less straight up horror from like a modern sense, because Haunting a Hill House felt like a very modern horror series. This feels like a very great gothic horror series. And there's one particular line towards the end of the show that really captures the spirit. And it's like you realize this isn't a ghost story. It's more of a love story. And that gives such an interesting perspective on this show, where, yes, it has these creepy kids, it has ghosts potentially possessing these kids like the Turning of the Screw did, but it goes so much deeper than this. This show is so much more than a ghost story. And even kind of jumping to the end, the last episode of this focuses so little on overt, heavy scares, like obnoxious horror movie scares, that there's just sense of dread and melancholy and love that underlines that whole entire last episode, and is so moving and powerful up to the very last moment where I felt it. I felt that energy going into the end of this show. And how this show is structured can be a little confusing at start, but you start to feel how each episode is focusing on a character and less of like, here's the plot points leading up to this point. And there's some voiceover in this that from Carla Gugino that I feel like is a little heavy-handed. It's trying to fit that like old school kind of like period piece kind of ghost story, and I'm like, I see where they're going with it, but I feel like just way too much narration. And also some of the accents, like Henry Thomas's, like, sounds like he's just trying to be Colin Firth. That's the thing, a lot of the Americans trying to do British accents just sounds like them doing impressions of famous British people. But besides that, this show has so much depth to each character. Every character has these layers, these emotional, haunting, looming things over their heads. And those are the things that are most tragic in this show. And then you do have those moments. There's a couple of scares that really hit hard here. And Mike Flanagan's the king of deep focus. You see things in the background that are unnerving and set the tones for things. Some of them were absolutely terrifying in Haunting a Hill House. And in here, Bly Manor, they're used pretty well. And there's a couple of moments. There's one particular jump scare towards the end of the series that really got me. Not quite like the one you all will know I'm talking about from Haunting a Hill House, but this really focuses on that gothic feel, that emotional dread, where there's a sense of lost love channeling through this show. And yes, there's real tension. And there's some unnerving moments, and the visual representation of a lot of the storytelling in this is so well done. There's one particular scene that really flips the switch on some revelations. That's the thing, there's a couple of revelations in the show in particular moments that are so well crafted, so visually realized, that those are the most horrific moments from a humanity perspective, and you're just hit like a freight train hitting you, and you're just sitting there like you're shook watching this show. I loved Bly Manor. I loved it just as much as I loved Hill House, just in different ways. And that's the thing. This is a different show. And it really does feel it. It feels in the same vein as Haunting of Hill House, but it takes a very different gothic kind of tragic ghost story. Harsh story. However you want to put it. It's hard to put labels on. Like, it feels like you have all these emotions channeling through you, and it's affecting. And that's the most important thing. But those are my thoughts on The Haunting of Bly Manor. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.